Okay, so I stayed up last night till 2:30 finishing Sunrise of the Reaping. No notes. End the video right now. I feel like it's taken me only a few days to read this book. I think I started it on Saturday. I read a few chapters in the morning. I only read like the first 3 chapters. And then I set myself a little reading challenge this week to try and read for at least 2 hours a day. I saw a video by another YouTuber called Beth where she has challenged herself to read for 2 hours every day. And I was inspired by it because I thought, you know what, my reading has not been the best the last couple of years. I feel like last year I only read 7 books, I want to say, in a whole year. 7 books. I feel like I've already read 7 books so far this year. Like, I'm doing so much better. But last year was just a bit of a in terms of reading. Buying books, however, I collected many new books last year. But I was inspired by Beth's video to challenge myself to do the same thing. So I started on Monday and yesterday, which was Tuesday, which was just day 2, I read the whole of this book. So on Monday, I think I was already on chapter 3 and I read a good like 150 pages. And then yesterday I was reading a bit during the day, and then I started reading when I got home from work last night about kind of 9:30, 10ish. And I just read. I couldn't stop. I passed my 2 hours. I got to the point where they were in the arena. So they were just about to go into the arena when I started reading last night. I kept trying to find a point last night to stop so I could go to sleep, but I wanted to wait for the games to be over, but then I was like, wait, but what happens after the games? And then before I knew it, I was at the end, and it was 2:30 in the morning. But it's been a long time since I feel like I've actually stayed up really late to finish a book. That's like a kind of childhood core memory for me, is just like remembering the nights where I was reading a really good book and I stayed up way past my bedtime to finish it. I do have some notes, just a few, but not too much. I feel like this book is just 5 stars. I don't have any problems with it. I don't have any issues. Not really. I will be curious to see other people's opinions, like other people that have read it who are more articulate than me and can deep dive and find hidden meanings in this and be like, don't you see the message that she's sending? Whereas I just sit there and I'm like, yeah. But I will say that there's a few things that I'm a little bit like, I do think the ending was quite quick. I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit more. I don't know. I think like I was getting very excited. I don't want to talk about too many spoilers for this book, but I will give a spoiler warning just because it's hard to talk about things without giving info away. So, bit of a spoiler warning for anyone that doesn't want to know anything about this book. This one, I don't know how to talk about this without spoiling things. I was very excited when named characters started popping up that we knew. Obviously, the difference with this book compared to the Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes is this is like 24 years before the first Hunger Games. So it works that people would be alive in the time of the 50th Hunger Games that were also alive during like Catching Fire. So it was that, I like that more than say like the Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes, because obviously it was set like, well, President Snow was like 18 then, whereas this book was different because it had a lot of like returning characters, and that was quite nice. Like that was really, I was hoping to see a few of them, and there was a couple of times where they would be mentioning things and I was like, wait a minute, I wonder. So that was really cool. We got to see Mags, which was really nice. She was Haymitch's mentor, as well as Wyrus, who was from District 3, and she was also in Catching Fire. Wyrus was the one who was in the arena with Katniss. She wanted her to be her ally, and Wyrus was the one that was all tick tock, and that's when I just realised the arena's a clock. And we get to see Beatty. I love Beatty, but his story in this one was really sad. This book was brutal. I'm just gonna say. This book was brutal. I don't remember the tributes' deaths in The Hunger Games or Catching Fire being as brutal as this. Like, they were all pretty brutal. They were. Like, it's still kids killing kids. But I don't remember them being as gory. Like, a girl was decapitated. Somebody was eaten alive and basically their body was stripped by squirrels. I was just shook. Shook. It was awful. The tribute deaths were awful. Going into this book, I couldn't remember much about Haymitch's games. Obviously, I knew that it was mentioned in Catching Fire. I think other people were much better at remembering and coming up with their own stories and theories. But I couldn't remember. Going into this book though, I had a little bit of a theory of what I remembered reading Catching Fire, but I then didn't want to go back and read Catching Fire or read that part and then spoil it when I could actually enjoy just reading the book. But basically, Haymitch's arena, obviously it's the quarter quell, so they had double the amount of tributes. So instead of 24 going into the arena, there was 48. And also the entire arena was basically toxic, which reading that then, I do remember them mentioning that in Catching Fire. I remember that being an arena, but I didn't remember that it was Haymitch's. And I remember her discussing there being an arena that was entirely like toxic, basically. Like, they couldn't eat, there was food growing everywhere, there was animals, like the water was poisoned, everything was just toxic. But I didn't actually remember that was Haymitch's games. And then I remembered the bit about him stumbling upon a force field and him basically using that force field to his advantage in the end, and that's how he won the games. So I did remember that. My only little this sounds weird. My only little criticism I have with this book is that basically right from the start, Haymitch gets on the bad side of the Capitol and President Snow. There is a couple of key moments that happens where he rebels, basically, or he does something that could be seen as rebelling. And like, I feel like President Snow is the kind of character who he stands for nothing. Like, the parade didn't go to plan and the parade master got killed for it. So something as simple as that was an accident, or it wasn't really an accident, there was a firework went off by a member of the crowd that startled horses, and fireworks, it went a bit berserk, but the parade master was killed for it, which makes me kind of feel like, it was an accident, but President Snow doesn't take these kind of things lightly. Haymitch was already on thin ice with President Snow on the Capitol, but just little things that had been happening on the lead up to him going into the arena. And already it was alluded that he's like, it's fine, I'm gonna die in these games. My mother, my brother, my girlfriend, who's Lenore Dove, who is Colby, which is the same as Lucy Gray from Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes, they're gonna be fine because I'm gonna die in this arena. That was already hinted at, that if he didn't die, his loved ones were in trouble. So that's already something that was touched upon. So because he has this mentality of, I'm gonna die in the arena, he then takes on this plan of seeing if he can find a way to completely screw with the game makers and President Snow and the Hunger Games as a whole. They want to destroy the arena. So there's a plot is hatched and different people are involved. So they had this plan, which had me surprised. I was like, oh, I didn't see this coming at all. I didn't see that happening. And then, this is a big spoiler warning, it works, but it doesn't. It didn't really do anything. It didn't really do much. It kind of screwed with the arena a wee bit. There was backup generators and everything ended up being fine. So it sort of didn't really do anything. But it was still fun to read about. Then later on, he's still right to the end, was just defiant. Even when he won and he was still in the arena and they were trying to get him out, he did one last act, which at that point, I think maybe he was hoping to die. Maybe he was hoping they would kill him, but they didn't, because the Hunger Games needs a victor. And then he goes back home and So stuff does happen. There's another big spoiler for him. And we know this from Catching Fire, that his entire family were killed because of what happened when he was in the Capitol. Katniss, I'm pretty sure, I want to say she says something along the lines of they didn't take kindly to him using their arena against them. So like using the arena, so he used the force field to win, and that's why they did it. I feel like that's what I remember from Catching Fire, but I could be completely wrong. I am just a little bit surprised that they let him live, and they let him live to basically he survived the entire series. He was still going at the very end. So I'm a little bit like, it was one thing to kill his entire family. I am just very surprised like President Snow didn't plan something else to like kill him. Like, I'm surprised he was allowed to live. Like, it already sounded like he was going to get into deep trouble and deep shit, and his family were going to get into deep shit for what happened leading up to him going into the games, that they were already in trouble. So I'm quite surprised that in the end they let him live. That's the only thing. I feel like Haymitch was doing the most and he got to live. Like, there was so much he did, so much like damage and stuff, and a real big like F you to the Capitol, and he was allowed to live. Like, remember when they bombed District 12 because of what happened at the end of Catching Fire? Like, I'm very confused a little bit about why. Like, I sort of expected a little. I think what it was, I didn't expect him to do so much, but I also didn't expect the repercussions to be so little. Which is, it's not little, because like his family home was burned down and the girl he loved died. So it's not like, I'm not saying like I sound so heartless. I sound like a psychopath. I just mean like in the terms of like, from what we know about President Snow and the way he deals with people, I am just very surprised that Haymitch was allowed to live. I suppose maybe the greatest form of torture is knowing that everyone you loved has been killed because of your actions. And he did basically live a life of just drinking and being alone. So I get that. I think I didn't expect Haymitch to do so much that he did. Like, he was doing the most. A couple of other things as well. I felt like in the end, like, there wasn't much of a reunion between like Haymitch and his mentors in the games, which I get why they would keep them apart. It is said that Wyrus and Mags were tortured and interrogated, but I'm surprised they were also allowed to live, if that's the case. Like, if they were tortured because they thought they knew something, surprised they were allowed to live. And then we've got Beatty, who twice now has done things, but like somebody said to Haymitch that like he's too valuable for the Capitol to give him up. And I'm like, is he really the smartest man in the entire of Panem? I can see why they would keep him alive. Also at the same time, I'm a little bit like, oh, you scared me. I am surprised that they kept him alive, because even if he had a brain, like, he's already tried to use it against them twice. And then the third time he succeeded because they blew up the arena in Catching Fire. But I am a little bit surprised again that like he was allowed to live. It's just like those were very little like nitpicky things. Like, there were things that just didn't quite make sense. I think in a way, it sounds mad, this might be an unpopular opinion, I was a little bit disappointed at first when I realised that there was going to be like a plot in the games and they were up to something. I just felt a little bit like it sort of didn't really make sense, because I'm like, there's no way you'd get away with it. And I don't think he did get away with it. I think they knew, because how could they not know? They'd be able to watch back cameras and stuff. Even at the end when he's talking, he's watching his own recap of the entire games, and he's like, they've meddled around with so much of it, they've cut out this bit happened on day 2 but they're showing it in day 3, like things like that. So, you know, obviously the Capitol does like edit things and show you what they want you to see. I'm just surprised that the people that were all responsible for the plot were fine. I just feel like they would have died. I just feel like they would have been killed, because it would have been a sign of being a rebel or rebelling. I'm just very surprised they were all allowed to live, all of them. And 25 years later, they all ended up in the same arena together and blew it up. But that aside, that's just me being a little bit nitpicky. I think I just thought this was going to be exactly like the first Hunger Games, where Haymitch is in the arena and just, it's the story of how he won, but actually, which is, but I didn't expect there to be this conspiracy plot happening at the same time, which was then exciting, but then it didn't really achieve much, I would say. It probably did. It just didn't, reading it didn't feel like it did much. I really liked the characters. You had the tributes that went into the arena with Haymitch, and I got quite attached to them. I liked the character of Maisley. Even Wyatt was one of those ones that I was sad when he died. It's a spoiler, but it's not really a spoiler, because at the end of the day, you knew going into this book, I was like, we know Haymitch is the victor. We know nobody else is going to survive because he wins the games. It's not like Catching Fire where the arena did blow up and they got half of them out, and most of them were, not most of them, but some of them were fine, like Katniss and Peeta and Finnick and Beetee, Joanna. I mean, they weren't fine because some of them did end up back in the capital and got tortured. But what I'm trying to say is, this is a normal games, like the first Hunger Games where, well, actually, no, that's a lie as well, because both Katniss and Peeta got out of the very first Hunger Games. This is like every other Hunger Games where there's one victor, one person makes it out alive, and we knew this going into the book, so I was still sad when they died. It was really sad. There was the 3 tributes that went in with Haymitch. There was different characters that we knew by name, we knew like they actually spoke to us. It was quite sad when they died. I was very sad. I didn't want them to. I was really hoping for some sort of miracle, but no. I remembered Maisley's death from Catching Fire because I remember them talking about it. I remember Katniss's mum talking about it, and about them and her dying with Haymitch. So that I knew it was coming and I was bracing myself, but it still hurt when it happened because I'd gotten really attached to her. All in all, though, for all my little grumblings there, I would say this is a 5-star read. It's a really good book. I loved it. Now I just want a whole book. I want a book from every single victor's perspective. Every single Hunger Games, which is terrible because we're as bad as the Capitol, wanting to watch these kids fight to the death. But it's just so good. Suzanne Collins is writing. It's just so good. And I love all our characters. And Christ, a character can utter one sentence and already I'm like, I'm rooting for you. They're just all, it's so good. It was so good. I enjoyed that the Covey lot were still in this one. Because obviously I feel like they just were not mentioned at all in the Hunger Games or Catching Fire. So we got to assume that they just died out. And the songs. And I was obsessed with the fact that Lenore Dove was named. Because the whole thing with the Coveys is they're named after a ballad and a bird. No, a song and a colour. Yes? Yes. You have Lucy Gray. And then this one was Lenore Dove, which the dove is a colour. Dove Gray. Oh. They love their greys. And then Lenore comes from the poem, what's his name? By Edgar Allan Poe, called The Raven, which I do quite like that poem because I remember it from The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror, where James Earl Jones narrated it. It was quoted a lot throughout the book. The hanging tree was mentioned. We did meet Katniss's parents. I didn't know Katniss's dad's name. I feel like maybe it is mentioned in the original books and I just didn't remember. But a name kept cropping up in this one and I was like, wait a minute, is that him? And it was. So that was really nice. And then there may have been a little mention of Katniss. There may have been a little mention. I would have loved, I think as well, I think in the end, the epilogue was quite quick. I just would have loved a little bit more info into his perspective during the time of Katniss's games and even like Catching Fire. Like there was a little, it was a page basically. It was just a page. But I would just have loved a little bit more from that because I would happily take another book from Haymitch's perspective from the entire trilogy. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up because I feel like I've been rambling. But it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I kind of want to reread the other books now, just because. But it was really, really good. I do hope someday Suzanne will write more books from this series. or from this world, because I would love to hear about other people's games, or just even just anything. I'll take anything. I would take a Hunger Games retelling from the perspective of Peeta and from Haymitch, or from Prim. How good would that one be, actually? Would it, though? Watching her sister. You could do all 3 stories in one book, I feel, because obviously half the time she's just watching the games and we already seen them, so we don't need to know what's happening. That would be quite good. I would take anything. I would take absolutely anything, because I just love coming back to this world, and I'm so glad I jumped in and just bought this book when it came out, because even though it is not going to match any of the books on my shelves, because mine are all paperbacks, I don't care, because it's purple and it's pretty. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one, whatever that may be. Now I just need to sit and go into a reading slump for 3 months, because I don't know how I'm going to recover after reading such a good book. Wait a damn minute. This book is called Sunrise on the Reaping. I thought it was Sunrise of the Reaping. I think I've been writing that everywhere. Wait a damn minute. I think I've been writing Sunrise of the Reaping everywhere, not Sunrise on. Well, I'll be.